Hello and welcome to Feral Plays Tropico for iPad. I'm your host Sam and with me is Edwin.
Hold up.
So we're going to jump straight in.
Right, here we go. So this is Tropico for iPad. It's complete Tropico game, so there's nothing missing. It isn't sort of cut down. There's no in-app purchases.
Nice.
No little currency stuff. It's just the full game. And you pay once and you get to play everything. So that's, without further ado, I think what we'll do for this playthrough is we'll just start playing through the campaign.
Yeah.
Maybe give ourselves a little bit of extra money, show you how the cheats work.
Start,
Then we'll take you through all the really cool features, controls, other stuff as we go through it. And maybe share a little bit of the fun and flavour of the humour in Tropico, because if you played Tropico before, you know one of the really cool things about this is just the tongue-in-cheek kind of jokes about, the
El
El Presidente, sort of the Cold War going on in the background, so you're playing the Russians off against the Americans for aid if you want, and things like that. So here we go, this is the first mission. It's called Bananas, and basically you get given your mission objectives is you need to export at least 8,000 units of agricultural exports, including bananas. So without further ado, let's get going. I really like those little loading screen quotes. They go really quickly, but some of them are just absolutely
priceless. Yeah.
Priceless.
Yeah, there's a couple I've seen that have just made me chuckle out loud in the office. Very awkward.
So here we go, you can select any of these famous dictators. So you've got Fidel Castro, Che Guevara, Pinochet. And they've all got, as you can see here, sort of these positive and negative traits. So one of the things which we were doing with the version of Tropico on the iPad is to try and make everything just at a glance nice and easy, take advantage of the touch controls. So you easily get a quick list here of their traits, but we also easily color code stuff, so you can see sort of at a glance what the good and bad different things are. You can also, if you want, create a custom avatar. So I think let's do that.
So this is where I've had a lot of fun. Just hitting the random button seems to produce the most interesting results.
There we go. He looks slightly like some sort of Bond villain, maybe.
It's very pimp.
Yes. So you can change through all of these different ones here. So you can go for a different white beard, no beard.
I mean, I'm liking the Abraham Lincoln look there. That was quite nice.
Yeah, especially with this sort of the Elvis Presley style costume.
Yeah.
So I think without further ado, that's our Presidente. So now we need to give him a name. Elvis.
Oh, Elvis.
You should also actually just read some of these descriptions. We're flicking through them quickly, but some of them are just absolutely hilarious. Some of them are just kind of funny, but sort of +10 all faction respect, diplomatic, administrator. Let's select administrator. Yeah. Right, so choosing floors. So everyone has to have floors. So you just need to choose something. As you notice, some of the floors, like you can't choose, you can't be moronic because you're also hardworking. So it's and an administrator. Those things mean that you can't.
Okay,
you can't
so
be the two
there's
things.
only so many things that you can choose out of the pluses that you've gone for.
Exactly. So if you choose one of your qualities of being highly religious, you can't also be something that is sort of opposing religion and vice versa.
Yeah.
So yeah, lazy is because we're hardworking, so you can't be lazy. That's a really simple one. So let's choose like shy. The loyalist faction doesn't respect you, and you get less foreign aid. Overall, in this one, that isn't too much of a bad thing to have. So I think being shy. You can flatulence. So this is one of my favourite, like, to show you a bit of the humour. If you're flatulent, you get worse relations with the US and the USSR, but you also have to pay your palace guards more because they have to put up with the fact that you're flatulent, which I just think is just,
The diet of beans must have had something to do with it.
Exactly. Beans for breakfast, beans for supper, and beans for dinner. So there you go. Yeah, let's go with that one. Yeah. There we go. And we can show the knock-on effect of that inside the game. So there we go. And right, here we go. So this is the Intel screen. You'll be looking at this quite a lot. So this tells you on the left-hand side, always tells you about your objectives, how you're progressing so far, what your overall score is at this point in time. And then on the right side, you have different news articles or things you need to respond to.
Okay.
So in this one, they're just making a little tongue-in-cheek joke about maybe the previous president didn't really decide to retire.
He was quietly pushed out.
Yes, he decided to leave for health reasons. You'll find throughout the game and throughout the audio as well. There's a lot of that. Right. So here we go. Coffee, sugar and tobacco, the most profitable crops, but they won't fill the island's population. Bananas will. They can eat the bananas and export them. So hence the name of the level, bananas.
Gotcha.
It's sometimes better to go and do that because then you can actually export some of the crops but also feed people. Right, so I think we've probably gone through enough explanation. So we can also just flick through. Here's the next, here's the first sort of suggestion of what we should do. So it reckons we should build a couple of new farms, tells us how to do it, and explains a few things about green being sort of the areas for the different farms, and we'll take you through that now. So here we go. This is our island. As you can see, it's the standard type of controls. If you use Google Maps or Apple Maps, the control system is just the same. You move around with your finger, rotate, pinch to zoom, and you can even put your fingers down like this, and you can tilt.
Very nice.
So it's got all of the controls. Right. So I think they initially said that we should probably build some more farms. So along the bottom here, we've got what we like to call a dictator's desk. Right behind me is a bunch of confidential files. Let me just try and move. There we go.
There we go.
Hey. So ta-da! This brings up the Intel screen that we've already been looking at. Next to it, here, this is El Presidente.
This guy here.
Yes, El Pres. And this just brings up the information about El Presidente. And I'll go into a little bit more of that later because there's some really cool things you can do with the El Presidente to help motivate to use people on the island. Next is Edicts. So Edicts, you can do loads of different types of edicts, different kinds. So for example, here let's just select prohibition. So this will increase crime because of the illegal liquor, but it will also increases sobriety, which increases the worker efficiency. But also people don't really like prohibition. So
who'd have thought it?
Yeah, exactly. So, but there's some other really handy ones. Increasing the food quality by doubles food consumption, but it also means that everybody's a lot happier with double rations. So it's good to do, but if you don't have enough food before you kick this edict off, then people will start getting upset because they're not getting their double rations.
Gotcha.
Social security, again, this gives people sort of a stipend once they've retired. But again, it does cost you a monthly fee. So let's have a quick look through. There's a few megalomania ones. I quite like the ideology book, where basically you write a book and then everybody has to read it.
As forced education.
Yeah, so because of that, all of the really sort of the nationalists really love you for it because they think you're a good, strong president, and the intellectuals think that this is absolute lunacy and will not like you as much. So for example, if you've got a really high rating with the intellectuals, but all of the nationalists are getting on your back and you've got an election coming, just break out an ideological book and
that's it.
Yeah,
sorted.
Things go fine. So there we go. Here's another one of my favourites, Shoot Juanito. So you probably can hear in the background every once in a while the Juanito, the radio DJ, and he carries on and goes on about different things, sometimes sniping at you quite a lot. So you can decide you've just had enough of this and you can just have him shot. And then you don't get any colourful Juanito commentary anymore inside the game. And also it guarantees no rebel attacks for at least 3 years because everybody's scared that they're going to be shot. It's kind of a funny one, but you also get rid of the funny DJ.
Yeah,
so I
yeah.
kind of
it's an odd balance there. It's quite interesting that all of those edicts have different positives and negatives there. There's sort of like you can do it, but it's not necessarily the right. It depends very much on the type of game that you're playing and really how much of a dictator you want to be in terms of where you go with those options.
Right, the next area just is a bunch of different overlays, and this becomes a lot more important in a little bit, so we're going to be flipping through it. But what it allows you to do, for example, at the moment we've got one corn farm and it's exactly here, so we can change the tilt. So this is a corn farm, so we'll need to go and make a few more corn farms. Basically, you can't export corn, but it feeds people the best. One there, so let's close that and move on to the next thing, which is the build menu. So there are all the different types here. We've got housing, we've got food resources, industry. The further through the game you get, the more all of these will fill in, so there's a limited amount of things you can do in the early missions, and more cool things unlock.
Okay, cool.
And it also then adds a little bit of extra complexity because you sort of have to learn, do I need to build these extra buildings to try and get more efficiency, but also it costs a lot, so it's a little bit more of a tricky thing. So the early missions kind of build you up into the game, so you learn how all the basics work, and then it slowly increases the number of different buildings you can do and makes the challenges a bit trickier. So when you start off at the beginning, it's normally quite hard to lose an election. By the end, you might get thrown into an island where pretty much everybody hates you and you need to sort it out real quickly. So let's go and build a farm. So you can see here we can just tap and place the farm wherever you want. Let's just zoom out a little bit. So we can see there's a nice color-coded area here. So the green areas are more suitable to the type of crop that we're doing. So we don't want to do corn because we want to export stuff, so we want to do bananas. As you notice, all of the color coding changed. So this area over here is really quite good for bananas. So the other thing is, what you want to do is you want to place the farm next to the greenest section, not directly on it, because the green areas are the areas where you can actually grow the crops. So if you put the building on it, then you can't grow on it.
You lose out on the potential resources.
Yeah. So sort of the best case is putting it in a slightly slightly darker area of green with all of the bright green around it, and that's going to give you the most profit. Same thing with laying a road. You don't want to put a road through the best part of your farm. So I think we need to probably put down a few of these. So let's just go and build a few in this area. Yeah, let's just put one in the middle of those, so we can do it like this. But before I do this one, we can also go into a brand new mode that we've first. Build another farm first. So what we can do is we can go over here and we can change to architect view. So this is a really cool mode that we've added, which gives you kind of like a top-down architectural plan of the island. So you can see all of the colours are a lot easier to see. It also gives you contours, so you can see there's no way you're going to be able to build up there because it's just really, really steep. But it does make things a little bit easier to place, so you can actually see dead on. We can rotate the thing around and just put it exactly there. I think what we need to do now is we need to get some roads going to this area. So we've made, you can build roads by going into here, and we can select roads that way. But there's also a quick way of doing it. Just put your finger on any part of a road. Okay, yeah. And then just hold your finger down and start to drag, and whoo! It goes back into architect mode, and there you go. We've got a road. So we've got all of these farms here. As you can see, when you draw the road, you get these little waypoints. Just drag them around, and you can see when it goes red, it means that you can't, the road can't go there, and it explains why in the bottom right here, unsuitable terrain. So it's really quite easy to just move around and select the little bit you want. Also, if you go very slightly red, you can just go and tap on the actual the little ringlets, and they will actually just quickly check. So if you, let's say you've got this road and it's just going red on one side and it's going red on the other way, and you know that there's a grey bit in the middle but you can't quite hit it, just when it's close enough, if you tap on it, it will see if it can just niggle it and move it to the right location.
Okay, cool.
So it's a handy little tip for when you're trying to do really complicated roads. In this case, it's really easy to do the road, so we'll just build that road, and let's just build another road. This one. This is a good example. It's flickering, so it's really hard to find something. So let's just there we go.
Nice.
You see, so instead of having to flicker around like that, boom, there we go, it solved the problem. We actually have a mode where you can add more nodes in to make really fine-grained adjustments.
Oh, okay.
So you can turn that on it's in the advanced options, and then it allows you to just put your finger anywhere and add nodes. I would say most of the time you don't need it, but maybe if you're playing a very custom level near the end of the game and you want to go and make a road in a very specific silly shape or something like that. While testing, we've made like roads that look like sort of wheels and circles.
Oh, okay, cool.
You can have a lot of fun just making it look sort of kind of funky for screenshots and things like that. Right, so we've built a road all the way along, so these farms are now looked after. But what we really need to think about is workers need to get to these farms. So although we've got the farms there, one of the things with Tropico is people need to be able to travel to work and travel back. And if their homes are too far away, they'll just build shacks. And they'll just dot them around here. Or if they're just too far away from other services, they just won't go and work there. So what we'll probably want to go and do next is let's go and build a garage. So what a garage does is people can walk to a garage, they can borrow a car and drive to where they need to get to. So if we just go and build a garage, and this will also show one of the cool things we did. If you notice, when I moved close, it snaps the road, and that's what this little feature here does. So if you've got any buildings that need to be connected to a road to work, instead of you having to zoom in and go, have I actually placed it correctly, we actually just made it so it's like a magnet. So if you look, I'm just putting along and it's just following along there. So all you need to care about when playing is
where exactly you want it on that road.
Yeah, so what we want to do now is just put it somewhere which probably won't get in the way of planting the bananas and is close enough for all three buildings. So we put it there, it's kind of walking distance for all of them without being too far away. Let's just put that there and boom, done. So what we'll also probably want to do is go over this end, and we'll probably want to put another garage here. This is where a lot of the houses are. So if you notice, when you zoom in, we start getting text descriptions of everything when you zoom out. So when you've been playing for a long time, you can just tell from the shape, this is definitely El Prez's palace.
Yeah.
But if you want to see what's going on, you can zoom in. It's also really cool, we made it so that the text rotates around, so you don't have to slowly sort of bend your head.
As you're sitting on the tube, just sort of turning your head slightly as you're doing it.
Yeah, so let's put another garage there. And there we go. So we now have a garage over there, garage over here. We've got 3 farms that we've set up as banana farms. And what we probably need to do now is, so the game's actually starting to roll along. So the other thing which we notice is a lot of people here are still living in shacks, even though there are a couple of shanties around here. So what we probably want to do is build some housing for everyone and get rid of those shacks. So I think it seems that we put the garage here. Should we put a building here? So instead of going down to this menu, we also have a quick wheel.
Ooh.
So yeah, so this is sort of the dictator's telephone.
The dictator.
Yeah, pick up the phone.
Yeah.
It's an old school phone. So yeah, it's anyone who's old enough totally knows what the noises from this phone is.
Remember. Shamedly, I remember.
Yeah, so here we go, and that will just quickly take you to the construction panel. Or you can, from here, you can actually quick select road, or you can build what the last thing you built again. So we can just build another garage.
Okay,
so it's just a really quick way of doing things. So we'll actually just go into the build menu and decide that we want to build some houses. So I'd probably say a tenement is a good balance. So down here it's got all of the information. This is really quite useful. Not only does it tell you about the actual building, it tells you about the average satisfaction of people, or for these ones it's the satisfaction of the building and the number of shacks. So you can see that there's 20 shacks on the island, and it's the average housing satisfaction out of 100 is 48.
Okay.
So people aren't too, it's pretty low. But all the different buildings give you different stats. So here it tells you how many different farms you've got. We've got 4 farms, food quality is 51, and the food variety is low. So people are a lot happier with the food quality and the variety if you have different types of farms. Maybe also
primarily because we're manufacturing and exporting bananas.
Yes, and we only have
scale.
Exactly, and we only have one farm that makes corn. So basically, it's corn or bananas, and the bananas haven't actually started being grown yet.
So
basically,
it's corn.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just corn.
And I would say that the overall food variety being low is that's not a lie.
Yeah.
So let's go back to, we can also build a ranch and a fisherman's wharf, so I think in a little bit we'll do that. But let's go and build some tenements.
So there's corn, or corn.
Yeah, I hope you like corn.
Yeah, I hope you like corn. Welcome to Tropico. I hope you like corn.
Yeah. So if you look, you can't, when you try and build over something, it goes red to inform that you can't build there. But if you notice, there's shacks, and shacks, basically you can just bulldoze over the top of them. But then people have to build new shacks. But the best thing to do is, where there's a load of shacks, it normally means that's where people want to live. And because there's no decent housing around that area, they've just built shacks. So it's often actually a good idea to build a new building over the top of some shacks.
Okay.
So let's just build there, and let's build another one here. I normally just try and stack a bunch up. So you can see here, we've been building away, and we're actually in debt. So we're probably going to have the USSR and the Americans offering bailout money and giving us diplomatic aid, and you need to at some point they won't lend you any more money and you can't build anything. You got to just wait, get some more money and sort of get your way out of it. But what we can do is you hold your fingers in the top left and top right corner like this. A keyboard appears, but with no text box. I wonder what's going to happen. So if we type in mucho, ooh, we just have $90,000 now.
Nice.
So let's just to speed up this process. Typed in mucho. There we go. Frutas, a multinational food conglomerate, has offered to send some of its specialists to help in the construction of new homes. Very nice of them. Normally when this thing happens, you'll find out within a few months they'll be asking to maybe do an exclusive deal on export rights or something like that. So often there's a bit of a payoff. Sometimes they give El Presidente some money for his Swiss bank account, as you can see here. So quick 10k to the Swiss bank account, and you agree some pricing. Or sometimes they will give you a bunch of new buildings or things like that, and you guarantee the price of your exports for X number of years.
Okay, so as this intel comes in, it's actually quite handy to keep an eye on it, sort of follow through and keep an eye and see what's going on.
Exactly, yeah. So one other thing we can do is, as you can see, these buildings are built quite quickly because all of the Teamsters and everybody who does the building is in that area. But over here, move over, hasn't been as much progress going on. So what we can do is we go here, we can notice that, there's this little dollar thing here. Let's press it. Quick build. So what this in effect does is it doubles the cost of construction. So you just pay for the entire price of the building again. But if you go yes, then it just progresses pretty much instantly, and there we go. Done a farm. So This is often quite useful. Let's say if everybody's starving and you just need to make a couple of farms really quickly to solve things.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's better just to pay through the nose, get it done, and then start reaping the rewards. Same thing with just before an election. If you said you were going to build a church and you've got a month before the election, the voting's going to happen, and you haven't built that church,
Insta-build
it, and you win the election, and then you can sort the money problems out afterwards. So another thing you can actually do is, if you want to destroy a building, you can just, and it sets a little spinning bomb over the top there. So you actually have a little bit of time before some Teamsters will come along and blow it up. So you can cancel it by pressing that. So if you put your finger over a building, you can get some things that you can decide to demolish the shack.
Mm-hmm.
We also added this, which anyone's played Tropico a lot, is a nice button. So what this will do, we'll just basically do a presidential edict to destroy all 17 shacks on the island. Yeah, do it. All the shacks are gone. A lot of rather upset homeless people, so I think what we should probably do is just quick build the tenements, and then everybody will be able to move in. We added this new feature in, which is the alert tab in our overlays. So this just gives you a list of potential things you might want to look at. So these aren't necessarily things you have to do for your mission. These are just things that the game's noticed you haven't done. So for example, there's no healthcare, and we don't have any garbage dump on the island. So that just means
get problematic.
That can get problematic. I mean, normally you can kind of ignore it, and it just means that sort of everywhere is a little bit sort of pollution levels go up a little bit. So you just need to keep an eye on it. Slowly, more and more different things will come in here. But if you're ever wondering what should I do next, this tends to be quite good. So if people are starving, it'll be like, hey, people need some more food. You should think about doing that. So the Almanac is designed to give you an overall view of what's going on your island, and also allow you to drill down into problems and what you might want to solve. So as you can see here, the average happiness is 44. We've got no tourists, and we've got a nice amount of money, but no money in our Swiss bank account. You don't need to put money in your Swiss bank account, it just increases your level score at the end of a level. So let's flip through. There's all these different things. So there's 2 people currently unemployed. Our average pay is below the average Caribbean pay, and there's 10 vacancies and 2 people unemployed. So this probably means that the 2 unemployed people, apart from being lazy, the jobs are probably further away from where they live.
Right.
So what you might want to do is the places with job vacancies, we can tap on it here. And the thing, again, we added in for the mobile version, it gives you a list of which places have got job vacancies. So the construction office has got 4 vacancies. Takes you straight to the actual office. As you can see, we've got 4 out of 8 workers. So what we can probably do is change the wages to $6 an hour from 5, and we've already got 1 extra person there. So what you can do is you can just bump up your wages. You also notice we can set wages for either all of that type of worker, or for all workers of that education level. So at the moment, all builders, all of the construction officers, because we've only got 1, are being paid the $6, because that's why it's ticked and says builders. But there are other uneducated positions, for example farmers, who are now being paid less. So that's why it went from being a tick to a little radio button. If we tapped on that, it would set the wages for every other uneducated job on the island to also be $6.
Right, okay.
But we don't really want to do that, because then
we've got to pay everyone $6.
We've got to pay everybody else. And what we're trying to do is incentivize more people to work here, because it's sort of a less salubrious job. Again, here it just gives you information of how far away they are from housing and food. So you can see the food's pretty close, housing's pretty close, so that's good. When the food gets too far away, that's when you start getting things of people being starving and things like that. So there's politics. When the elections come along, as you can see, the loyalists do not like us. The Americans don't like us, but the Russians really
love us.
Yeah, really love us. So what we can also do is click on the loyalists, and as you can see here, you can also see how many faction supporters exist. So there's 5 people on the island who happen to be loyalists. So I think we're fine about not pandering to them. But if you want to make them like you more, they seem to be demanding a childhood museum. So I believe it's a collection of your bubblegum wrapper stickers and things like that. So
seems legit.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those kind of like sort of crazy dictator where they go and create a childhood museum which is just full of weird tat which they had from when they were a kid. Of he always dreamed of being a president. A building has not produced any food in the last year. That could be because we've just changed to build mode, so it isn't necessarily. These are just warnings that things that you should look at or just know about. You shouldn't necessarily think, oh no, I need to get rid of all of them. It's basically just a constantly flowing list of little things that you might just want to know about. Here's a deal. I knew it was coming. So they're going to contribute 10,000 to the island's economy if we agree that Frutas will handle all of the agricultural exports for 10 years at a specific price. Now it seems that we are, shall we say, we don't need to, but these things are kind of interesting because sort of sometimes it's better just to get the 10 grand so you can quickly build a bunch of buildings and just get on with things, versus not maybe making as much profit as you thought you would. So it's kind of a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
I say let's just decline for now.
Plus the extra 2 grand in the Swiss bank account.
Yeah, oh yeah, I forgot about the 2 grand in the Swiss bank account.
I mean, who doesn't want that? Like, you know.
So this island doesn't actually have any mineral deposits, but if you go through, oh, there we go. So we just got a bunch of sold a bunch of goods.
Nice.
So that means we got our first banana crop went out. So here we go. You can look at the humidity, the beauty, which is if you're building hotels and touristic things, put them in the green areas. If you place a garbage dump, that whole area is no longer going to be beautiful.
That's quite good. So you can actively, so with like the beauty aspect of it, you can actively affect the areas that stay green and
yes.
Can you do the same with the with the pollution as well?
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of pollution around here. So you can go and you sometimes do edicts, or maybe change the build mode if you've got something that a factory nearby. You can have it cost more to run, but it'll be pollute less. Same thing with power stations later on in the game. There's these little upgrades on some buildings. So if you tap on them, so there's not enough power for a flash freezer, because you need a power station.
Right.
I've got a feeling that we might not be allowed to build power stations, this being the first level in the game. But here we go. We pay for this. So these upgrades sometimes they don't always mean that you're going to make more money from the building. So some of them actually reduce the production, but maybe increase the happiness of the workers.
Right.
So there's a few things for like the cigar factory where you actually put the skylights in the roof. It costs you more money to get it installed, but it means that people are more productive and enjoy their job more because they're not in a darkened room.
Right, okay.
So it's all about sort of playing...
all about trying to find the balance between pretty much all the options that you're given.
Yeah, all of those things are under construction, and that makes me think, let's go and have a look at the El Presidente stats. So if I tap on this, it'll actually take me to where El Presidente is. He's inside this building right now. Talking about doing his El Pres thing. There we go. That natty little outfit that we saw earlier.
Fantastic Elvis outfit.
So he's been in office for 3 years. He's had no edicts, no Swiss bank account. Overall respect is 56%. So you can decide to go and do things. So at the moment he's just walking around. So you can set a work mode for him. So El Presidente can do things like if we tell him to go to this construction site, if he goes to the construction site, just like all good dictators, people start thinking about maybe shuffling up. Yeah,
just working a little bit harder.
If you think back to sort of building a Death Star, when the Emperor or Darth Vader arrives, all of a sudden things become fully operational.
It's amazing how quickly that all turned around, wasn't it?
Yeah. So he's probably gonna head over here in a second, and there you go. He's on his way. And then once he's been here, you'll notice you get this little shining sun over the top, and that implies that El Presidente has been there recently and has boosted morale. Okay, so here we go. We were getting a grant from the CEO of Frutas. So we've actually started building a church. We've started building some healthcare,
and we already have a garage. So I feel
we already have a
Swiss
garage.
bank account's been left.
Exactly.
Unattended.
So let's take that into the old Swiss bank account already. There we go. So we can flick through these modes. Hard hat. This basically just means that he tours all of the different construction sites.
Okay.
Then you've got Salt of the Earth. So he basically goes around to all the different farms and production areas. And that means you get boosted production, which helps out. So depending on what's going on the island, you might want to choose different ones. That's the industry. This is the R&R, so entertainment, human services, or Grand Tour. And Grand Tour is he does everything and then he goes and gives a speech at the palace.
All right. Okay.
So go and do that now, and he goes up on his little dais here, and he gives everybody the.
I've seen it when the people start walking towards him as well, and you're just like, "No, people, you need to carry on working."
Yeah. So let's have him on. Let's go to the palace. Let's have him on hard hat, because we've got a lot of things constructing right now, and he'll help speed it up. Or also go and select here and have a quick look at is there any upgrades we can do. So we can upgrade the garden, makes the palace even more beautiful, and that makes the area around it more beautiful, helpful with tourists. Quality of the palace guards jobs is increased by 20 if you build sentry boxes. They're already paid stupid amounts, they're fine. And you can build a statue and then they won't protest around your palace. Seems that we had a few protesters recently. I reckon let's go and upgrade.
Nothing says fear me quite like a statue.
Yeah. So we seem to have a problem here. Got some workers, but we don't have any input yet. So I think this is probably because we haven't had any goods coming in recently. So here's a good example of, like, we built all of these buildings around here, but there are people wanting to work. So funnily enough, they just go and build shacks right next to it because it's too hard for them to get to their housing. So we build a housing, that'll probably help. What we can also do is we can either build some housing here, or we could build a garage. So I think tend to like just bulldozing them. It's just, you know,
You're like the nicest dictator, except for when it comes to housing. It's literally the only thing that you just like. It's like no.
Yeah,
no.
just
Your shacks. Your
yeah,
shacks are just
like,
you're messing up my island. Your shacks are getting destroyed.
Yeah, I very much get to the let them eat cake type of thing when it gets to shrinking economy. Let's find out what's going on. Okay, so I think our shrinking economy is probably because we've just been spending like crazy, but that should all kick off and help out in the longer term. So we've got papaya growing quite fine. Oh, we haven't built any entertainment. That's what we forgot to do. Well, what I forgot to do. I'm just dragging you into it here.
And there's me saying we need to crush the rebellion, and you are literally going, no. We need to entertain them. That's how we win them over.
We need to have a bit of a party, right? We can build a pub, some cabaret.
Okay, well the pub is definitely necessary.
What? No cabaret?
Well, a cabaret as well, but definitely a pub.
Right. If you achieve 40% housing happiness, you'll receive a score of 250. Right. Okay, so I think the way of doing this is let's go and see if we can maybe do some of this with an edict. Free houses. Activate. That's going to help a few things out. Let's go and see. Let's see what other edicts which we can do. Things which should make people a bit happy. It's a literacy program. Seems that we actually have schools now. This
That's
one's probably worth doing. Yeah. Let's see what else we can do here. Anti-litter ordinance. So this, again, there's a bit of pollution going on. We can sort this out. but it does reduce liberty, so maybe we don't want to do it. Food for the people. Don't think we need to activate that right now. This increases the respect, but I think our respect's high enough right now. Not any of those. Let's have a quick look. There we go. So raid self-respect, we don't need that. We can post Mardi Gras, but we don't.
Sounds good.
But we don't really care about tourism. Pollution standards reduces factory pollution, but we don't really have any major factories. And this increases all construction costs by 20%, but 10% goes to your special permit.
Nice.
If we're rich, we can turn that on. Just funsies. It also has a negative effect of anyone who's smart and intellectual in the island will dislike you.
As they've sussed out that you're using your Swiss bank account.
Let's have a look. We've got 16 years left. We need to make at least 8,000 on our exports. So our housing is happiness is 37. So we're pretty close to getting the bonus on that. And we're 1,725 exported units. So you can also, this is a really good view for just having when you're building, you can see where you've put everything. So we've got all of these tenements. So the other thing which we were thinking of doing was trying to get over 40% happiness of buildings. So what we need to do is probably build a few slightly more upmarket homes. So let's build some apartment blocks. And they're kind of a good trade-off between the really hoity-toity expensive houses and your tenements or your shanties, which are just straight up. I mean, a shanty's better than a shack, but that's a bit like sort of saying severely bruising your leg is better than breaking it. They're both terrible. But in a pinch, if you've got to choose between one or the other, you're going to pick shanty over shacks. Especially if you don't have very much money and you just need to quickly try and get rid of shacks, especially when sometimes one of the bonuses might be having less than a certain number of shacks on your island over a certain period of time. Right, so okay. Let's we built go. I realise we haven't built our newspaper yet, so let's build that. Ooh. I love the fast building animation. It feels so nice.
It's very satisfying to watch.
Yes. Just don't want to look at the scary numbers.
Yeah. Money's no object.
There we go. $500 to the Swiss bank account. Woo!
At least if we do get overthrown, we've got some money safe.
Yeah, put it aside for a rainy day.
Yeah.
So the other thing which you notice mentions about apartments is you can put them closer to tourist areas.
Yeah.
So again, it's always worth reading the little bits of text and having a look at the different modes. So you have normal maintenance or roach patrol. So it cuts your maintenance down. So if you're running out of money, you can just quickly go through all your buildings, turn them onto roach patrol, and people will be more upset with the buildings, but you'll also be saving half the costs. So again, it just if you're right on the cusp of not being able to afford something, here we go, objective complete. Woo! Our housing,
nice,
40%. So that bonus is there, and as you can see, our exported units is moving along at pace as well. So. This island's actually taking a bit longer than I thought, because we're slowly planning things out and slowly doing things. And
you've been very careful to take into consideration all of the people's needs. You've been a very good dictator to your people.
Yeah, but I think that's kind of the fun thing about this game is you're not always having to. It's kind of like the laid back Caribbean way of playing. You don't need to hurry towards things hugely. It's sort of you always have a little bit of I need to do a bit of that, do a bit of this.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Every once in a while, there's a mission where you need to get a bit of a hustle on. But equally, sometimes it's sort of you can just sit there and move at your own pace. You can really go quickly, or you can do what we're doing and just peruse and go, actually, will make our sort of people a little bit happier. So for example, in this mission, you just need to export 8,000 units. So sometimes if you want to do this really quickly, you can really push it and get to the point where you've exported 7,500 units. You've got a huge amount of rebels, and the whole thing is about to just explode into ultimate violence.
Yeah.
But as long as you get those 8,000 unit thing, you've succeeded the mission and move on. Whereas what I've been trying to do here
what
is
happens after what happens afterwards is it's the next guy's
exactly.
problem.
Yeah, exactly. You just cash in your mission bonuses and move on. But that's why I think the mission bonuses exist, is just to try and sort of push you towards maybe trying to sort of do it in the kind of a bit more of not so much the right way, it's a bit more of a fun way of exploring all the different modes and options and build things. So let's go and have another quick look in here. So the pastures around a ranch have deteriorated. So essentially, if you have a ranch in the same place and just keep on hammering away, slowly the cattle will lower the sort of the ability of the soil to be able to have different types of. So the longer and longer it's there, what you tend to do is it becomes a bad area for ranching after a while, and then you just got to build some houses on it and then build some new ranches in a new place. So that's one of the reasons why I built a new ranch over here, because slowly these ones are going to deteriorate away, not making as much.
Right, okay.
That you tend to be able to do that with a little bit of urban crawl at the same time. So as you can see, I built the first ranches here. When this one here stops producing as much, bulldoze it, build a bunch of houses, and then move the ranches further out, maybe build a pub, something like that, and then move on again.
So it definitely requires you to sort of, like any buildings that you do construct, they're not necessarily like for the ranches, for instance, like you want to keep an eye on them. You want to make sure that they are still producing good quality. And
it's mostly the ranches that have the deterioration over time, but also you need to keep an eye on the farms, because maybe you'll suddenly notice that you don't have enough food because we've just increased our population by 100, and we haven't built any more farms, which is going to start happening soon. So let's have a quick look. Here you go, 5 food and resources buildings have no garage nearby, so let's click on here. This is a really cool view. So this shows where the garages are. Oh, here we go.
The farmers have begun to strike.
We can send in the military, meet the demands, or pay off the workers. So this is actually being created probably by the Frutas, main competitor in the Caribbean. It's constantly coffee limited. So what you can do here is we can either put up the prices, or we can just pay off the workers in a one-time payoff and hope that they're not all going to try it again. Now, given the number of farms we have on this island, increasing the wage to 10 will quickly, over about 5 years, equal $2,000 in the treasury. So it's probably better just to pay them off and carry on. So we did it.
Hey!
So there we go. So we in the end ended up with 940 citizens. We got a city budget 4,895. We put a whole bunch of money away in the Swiss bank account. Difficulty was normal. We met all the major bonus objectives, and we got a little bit of a score for megalomania.
Very nice.
So if you have a look at all of those different things we were doing, if we were following your kind of like burn them to the ground Hellraiser, the megalomania score would be really quite large.
Well, yeah, I mean, I figure sending the military is a really good idea to just kind of, just to get the farmers back to work, Maybe a couple die, but if we keep importing them, then it's all good.
Yeah. So then you get a nice little victory video here of everything going on.
Good job, El Presidente.
El Presidente has succeeded. So, and now we've unlocked 3 more islands that we can start doing in Pilgrim Heaven. So this one here is all about a very religious island, but you need to go and try and increase the tourism. But you kind of got to balance it here. So you got to, I think in this one, you're going to be doing things like build a church and obviously build a cathedral, but you also might be wanting to do things like you can try and incite a papal visit,
right? Okay.
Which will sort of boost things up. And also some of the things which you do for tourism actually will annoy the religious side of things. So if you're throwing like Mardi Gras parties and things, that might kind of annoy them.
Right, okay.
So you've got to try and balance it. You don't want to make it just either for one or the other. You need to basically get enough tourism in without kind of annoying the religious faction.
Right.
So it's kind of trying to balance it. So you might go and build a whole bunch of sort of alcoholic bars and all that kind of stuff, and then the religious faction might get upset, and then you'd be like, well, we'll have a papal visit, and that'll increase their happiness. So you're just kind of balancing it out by doing different edicts, or maybe sort of building different types of buildings. So you might hold off and then just say, but I'm going to build a cathedral, and then suddenly everybody's going to be happy again. So sometimes it isn't best to like build a church and the cathedral straight away, because you've kind of like blown the impact of the cathedral. So you might just build a church, wait till it starts dropping down, and you're like, I need to do something, build a cathedral, and it bounces it back up, and it gives you another 10 years of being able to do other things.
Yeah. So
it's just kind of like trying to do a happy balance of the two. And you've got industry titans. This is a little bit more about the essentially sort of the British have got kicked out, but they still have a 50% tax on any of your agricultural, mining and lumber exports. But they don't give you the tax, very heavy tax.
Yeah.
But they don't tax you on anything where you've improved it. So, for example, the cannery that we were doing. So you'll want to do cannery, you'll want to do the jewellery, you want to make hand-rolled cigars, things like that.
Right, okay, cool.
So again, that's kind of a cool one. And then you've got the second chance. So basically, you've been kicked off your main island, and your loyal supporters have followed you to a new island and installed you as president. So there's pretty much nothing there apart from some iron ore deposits, and then you got to make it work. So they're all like different types of challenges. And again, you don't need to play as the same Presidente that we did for the second island. You can pick a brand new one if you want to. So
very cool.
It is quite cool. And if you notice the little exclamation point, there's no getting away from it, guys. If you use the cheats, you will be shown up.
It's the only thing El Presidente cannot fix.
Yeah, there is no edict for hide cheats.
Yeah.
Maybe we should add one in.
Yeah, maybe.
So the one other thing which I'd sort of quickly go across, we didn't want to really do, because we want to kind of show you the flavour, the full game, was the tutorial. So the tutorial will take you through basically everything I was doing in the game. The advanced tutorial follows on from that and explains a little bit about the economy. So explaining that sort of you need to building factories and what the knock-on effect of having a factory, and you need to make sure that you've got the farm. So you take the pineapples, you grow the pineapples, you then take them to the cannery then will can them, and then they'll get exported. And then making sure that you've got sort of garages in the right places and things like that. I would recommend, once you play the tutorials, as I was doing while we were playing through, is just always quickly checking on the info tab. And scroll through, and as we did, you can ignore stuff. It's more just like, that's the kind of things that are going on. Pop into the Almanac. If you noticed anything with an underline, will take you to an area with more information. So you can tunnel through stuff of clicking on unhappy people, click on an unhappy person, and then tap on their name, and then it'll take you to that actual person. It showed all of those bars of what they were finding annoying about. So that person who became a rebel, they were really angry because there was no entertainment on the island. We built a pub and it solved the problem. So what you should always do is we try to make it so you can just hot link your way through. So you're not sat there scratching your head of, what do I do next? Why are people upset? It's all there. You just tap, follow through, and then always use the quick build thing of hold your finger down. You get the quick radius thing, so you can quickly choose options and stuff. And the final one is Sandbox. So there's a whole bunch of really cool islands you can choose, with just standard different difficulty. Or you have Generate Island, where you can actually say what size you want the island to be when you drag it, how much elevation. So you have a lot of elevation. It does mean there's areas you can't build in, but it also means like coffee needs high elevation.
Right. Okay.
So
it affects the resources.
It affects the resources and how well certain things will grow. So if you really want to sort of try and have an island where you're just having fun, but you're going to see how much coffee you can export, you don't want a flat island.
Gotcha.
And also it's a bit trickier. If you have a load of elevation, you're going to have to build roads and think about designs and things like that a little bit more. How many different mineral deposits there are, lots or little, and how much vegetation. So we just hit generate, and it'll show you a general idea of the outline of the building, of the island.
Yeah.
Yeah, that looks good. And then you can select things like political stability, the world economy, tourism, your game length, population, what random events, prominent factions, and also a few extra things of you can set. So tourism doesn't work as well, free elections, immigrant out, and God mode. God mode is a little bit like what we had, except it isn't really cheating because you've just selected it, but you don't get any achievements for these ones.
Yeah.
So you can select what you want, and then you go into your next, create your custom avatar. As you can see, it remembers the avatar you had before. So L Elvis, hit go, and boom, you're into another island.
Lovely.
And one thing which I didn't mention is all of these different. I think I've touched it once, but all of the major areas have got a help which explain different things, like explaining the overlays.
Nice.
So if you ever feel like you're getting slightly stuck, just look for the little green question mark there, tap it, and it'll give you some extra info. But I'd highly recommend dig through the Almanac and dig through the overlays. The two of them combined with the little underline. So click on that, and it'll actually it'll take you through where the different corn farms are. So if you just flick through these things, it shows you where the shacks are. So using these modes to solve your problems is definitely sort of the really cool way of being able to bounce around and have a look at different things. And then finally, 3 fingers down, it's a standard quick thing to pull up the pause menu. You saw that it was auto-saving, but you can manually save, restart the level. We've also put a whole bunch of different options in here, so you can turn on and off hints, annual reports, turn on subtitles. We have a colorblind mode, which makes things shades of grey instead of for red-green colorblindness.
That's quite handy.
We change the size of the speed dial that appears, so it can be big, it can be small. So if you want it to be a lot bigger, so that you go and definitely point to things because you've got a bit of a sort of bigger fat fingers, and
if you're like me,
and there are some people who want them super tiny because they just want to be able to quickly do stuff. So you can change the sizes of that. We have also added in a few things. If some people think that pulling down should tilt the camera down, some people think pulling down should tilt the camera up. You're covered. We invert the camera rotation, invert the camera tilt. And we also have classic camera tilt, where it has a bit more of a stylized camera curve. So you can flick between them if you really sort of want sort of different settings. And the same thing over here, we've got camera sensitivity. So there's a whole bunch of different settings. What we'd recommend is just start playing. But if you find one thing you're like, I'm not too sure about, have a dig around in here. There's things to turn on and off.
Yeah. So it's Tropico the way you want it.
Exactly. That's exactly how it is. It's URL Presidente, and that goes as far as the actual controls in the game.
The power of El Presidente in the palm of your hand.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So there we go. And also there's a few achievements here that you can slowly unlock as you play through. So you can have a quick look and then decide which ones to do. We didn't actually do an election, but you can praise yourself in an election speech, which is always a good one.
That's where I'd start.
A few extra ones here. Happiness above 70%. We weren't getting anywhere near that one.
Well, you certainly wouldn't have done it if I was if I was the president.
Finish a sandbox game in God mode. That's an easier one to do. Suppress an uprising. That one.
Hey, there we go. There's my button. I knew it was in there somewhere. So that's what I'm looking for.
And then there's a sort of a quick guide or manual which explains what all the different symbols which you saw floating over the top. So we had ones which explain sort of when El Presidente goes to a building, you get the nice shiny sun.
Yeah.
And that means that it's got sort of increased productivity. And there's loads of other ones. What all the different rebels have got little flags above their heads, things like that. Cool. So if you ever wonder what does that mean, go here, select where you saw it, and boom, it'll explain everything. And I think that is
is
Tropico.
Right. Thank you guys very much for watching. Please keep an eye on our social media channels on Facebook and Twitter and our website for further news regarding Tropico, and we'll see you next time.
All right, see you guys.
Bye.